When you're starting with Syntropy, the first thing you have to realize is we're focusing on natural processes, right? So Mother Nature has the ability to heal itself, just like when we get a scab or we cut ourselves when we fall. And then the red blood cells come to the surface and they cover and they coat, protect it. And then it starts to heal, the white blood cells come in, and then we develop hair, skin, and everything else. It's the same way with forests. When we clear the land, bring it back to bare soil, it's like making a cut. And then first things first, the weed comes, grass comes to cover that spot, to create that scab, covering the soil, one of our first principles. And then from that, it creates better conditions in the soil. It's more moist. It can it can be home to more microbiology and insects. And from that way, it expands from grass to shrubs to bushes to small trees to larger trees to forests.
Our potential, it's exponential.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another podcast of Abundant Souls. I have my new friend who I met at a Syntropy workshop, JR Lallemand. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, happy to be here.
Heck yeah. Dude, you come all the way from Tampa to spread the good word of Syntropy, bro.
Amen. The gospel of regenerative agriculture.
So yeah, man, tell us about it.
So Syntropy is a form of agriculture, regenerative agriculture, that's coming out of Brazil more strongly. It's led by a man named Ernst Götsch, a Swiss-Brazilian farmer and researcher. He's been studying Brazil. He learned a lot from the people of the Amazons and the way of which they grow their crops and things.
And where's Ernst Götsch from again?
He's from, I want to say, Switzerland.
Okay.
I want to say that's where he started, and then he worked his way through from Switzerland into Brazil so that he can learn and train in different styles of agriculture. And then from there, he developed this system of agriculture that's really based around forest dynamics. So following the laws that already exist in nature to create an abundant food system with healthy soil.
That's it, within a forest environment.
Exactly.
I love that. So first of all, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and what you do now and your background?
Yeah. So let's see. Quick recap on me and my background. My name is Joanel Lallemand. I'm a first-generation Haitian American. I grew up with a lot of feelings towards heroism and doing things to save the world. But of course, at that time, it always looked like, I don't know, flying spaceships and saving damsels in distress. But as I grew up, I decided I really, truly wanted to make a difference in the world. And around 2016, I started looking for ways to do just that. So I did a lot of protesting, activism, and things like that. But
around what? Like, what sparked that?
Well, around that time, it was all very much BLM related. It was just like different ways to support my community, to give back, to get involved, and to get connected and get organized. But one of the benefits of my upbringing is that both my parents are acupuncturists, Eastern medicine doctors. So through their educational process, I became very familiar with the Eastern way of thinking, and also my own adventures into consciousness and things. But one of the main philosophies is to treat the root cause, not the symptom. And that's exactly what I realized we were doing in these situations, that we are only reacting to the situations, the symptoms that present themselves, but not the root cause, which is why we found ourselves repeatedly addressing the same problem over and over again without getting real change out of it.
Yeah. Because we're trying to cure the symptom. Mm-hmm. It's very Western of us. Interesting.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so after I realized that, I decided to find out what the root cause was. And it turns out the root cause for a majority of these issues across the world is deforestation, lack of economic opportunity, and scarcity as a whole, poverty. So I try to see maybe there's some solutions that are like brand new, being invented, like cutting edge things, and maybe they're being tested somewhere. So I started looking, thinking I'd find maybe one or two that might be good. Turns out there was thousands all over the world being tested, proven, and all over the world. But the problem was they weren't being put together in a turnkey package for the people who needed the most. So I found three, settled on three, and I started my nonprofit, Kiske International. And it's been a journey ever since.
Amazing. What's your, yeah, dude, it's a nonprofit. What's your mission?
Our mission is to fight scarcity in the world's most at-risk communities through regenerative agriculture and innovative solutions. So long story short, our goal is to find solutions for a community, create a package of solutions that helps them to elevate themselves out of poverty, educate ourselves and our team, and then educate the people on the ground so that they can be in charge of their own recovery.
I love that.
Teach a man to fish.
Yeah, that's it, guys. That's the message. We grow the growers, you know.
Amen.
Making a bunch of garden soldiers out here.
Amen.
Because we need to hold it down. We all are stewards of the land. You're right.
Yep. It's a skill I
Cool.
think that we have kind of gotten detached from, but that is immensely profound in what it can do for us as at a community level. And we talk about the things we need to do to fight climate change. Our food is exactly where we need to start.
It's true. And I went down a similar path, brother, around that same time about like, how do we fix all this problem? Like when you hear about deforestation and scarcity, it's like, you're like, whoa, you almost freeze. You're like, you know, there's such big issues.
So immense.
It's immense. like whose fault is this? All this stuff. You're like, where do you start? And it's so true. Like I came to the conclusion, okay, where our food comes from, our practices, the soil is being depleted, all these things that you came to realize too.
And
so through regenerative ag, bro, I love that. And
one of the things that really, when I started, just like you said, we went on the same path. And when I started, I thought, I'm going to be the only one pursuing this. It's going to be like world on my shoulders, pushing a boulder uphill style work. And the one thing that's really made this such a delightful adventure is that the more I do it, the more I find people who are walking the exact same path. And it's just like, man, like I'm not alone in the slightest. They were doing it everywhere. We're just not connected yet.
That's right. Yeah. Tell them, dude, because you're coming out here, bro. It does take me coming to that workshop with Tiago.
Exactly.
Like, hey, like it's a network, right?
And it's funny that most of it almost happens out of hapstance. It's not really like planned, coordinated networking. It's just like bumping into people, and you're just like, wow, you're like literally pursuing the same path. And it's just like staying connected and doing the work.
Yeah, dude. Well, what do you think that is? We're just like in the same places, or looking for the same things, or
I think in a logical side, yes. We're in the same places doing the same things, but I do think there's like a cosmic pull towards like-minded souls in a sense. So it's just like if you're doing the work and you're looking for like-minded people or you need like-minded people you kind of just like manifest that. You pull that in and you leave a space for them to step in. It's kind of how I see it.
it's
and
like
it's
quantum mechanics, you know?
Oh, yeah, spooky action at a distance.
Yeah. Yeah. The feel entry, like putting your Joe Dispenza talks about that.
Yep.
It's just that's manifestation.
Amen.
It's very cool, man.
Yeah.
So dude, because we met, and I think about that. It's like microbes running into each other in the soil, you know? Like symbiotic.
We all have a role to play, and it's just like we might not be the same creature at the end of the day or have the same function, but we're all doing the same job.
That's right.
And I think that's the main thing about Syntropy that gets me excited, because as human beings, I think one of the first questions we had are, why are we here? What are we supposed to do? And it turns out that we've been looking for our function in the world, and now we know pretty much everything from the weeds to the worms to the bugs. They all play a function, and we're not sure what ours is. And I think with Syntropy, with regenerative ag, we realize that this is our function. We're the gardeners. We're the caretakers. And it's
amazing.
like, okay, I get it now.
Bro, me too. Because I didn't have a lot of purpose and calling and whatever. And I think for a lot of people, this resonates once they really like take a look, like, what is this all about? And it hits them. It's like, wow, we really are creators.
Yep.
Like that's our function. That's so beautiful.
And I think for me, the thing is that what is our skill as human? Like if you were to follow the religious paradigm, you would say that Adam and Eve, their first job was to look and name everything in the garden, categorize, right? So we got lost in this whole categorization and classification side of things and forgot that our real job is to take care of what is there rather than just like nitpick and like categorize. And so I think this is such a powerful tool because we have the ability to see, recognize, and replicate systems. How can we use that to benefit nature? Take processes that take 150 years, condense them down to 10, using our knowledge and expertise.
Yeah, and so we learned. I wanted to go into this for sure, JR, because this is the cool stuff. Like, this is what it's about. Like, how do people do that? Like, I think, like, because Tiago, who was putting on that workshop, who's the man.
Amen.
Yeah, he was spitting truth, and I learned so much from him, and he's so deep, right? How does someone understand that, like, a forest, like you're talking about a forest, to go from grass, like, you know, destroyed land, deforested land, to actual thriving forest, old growth system takes hundreds of years sometimes. Like, how do we speed that up? If someone's like, hey, I have a piece of land, or like, I'm interested in this, how does that happen in 10 years?
So I just want to touch on this. Thiago Barbosa, the man that we mentioned, is Thiago Barbosa, founder of Syntropic Solutions on the shirt.
Oh, yeah,
He's my
Thiago.
mentor. I met him in Costa Rica.
Shout out Tiago.
Exactly. Hey, Thiago, hope you're listening. But yeah, so he's the one that kind of introduced me to Syntropy. And I think when you're starting with Syntropy, the first thing you have to realize is we're focusing on natural processes, right? So like you said, how does a piece of degraded land turn into a forest? Well, Mother Nature is probably one of the most intelligent beings in our universe. It's the only planet that we know of in our galaxy that can produce life. And it's been doing this perpetually for millions of years without our stimulus or help. It's only in the short time we've been here that it's been struggling, and that's mainly due to our impact. So Mother Nature has the ability to heal itself, just like when we get a scab or we cut ourselves when we fall. And then the red blood cells come to the surface and they cover and they coat, protect it. And then it starts to heal. The white blood cells come in, and then we develop hair, skin, and everything else. It's the same way with forests. When we clear the land, bring it back to bare soil, it's like making a cut. And then first things first, the weed comes, grass comes to cover that spot, to create that scab, covering the soil, one of our first principles. And then from that, it creates better conditions in the soil. It's more moist. It can it can be home to more microbiology and insects. And from that way, it expands from grass to shrubs to bushes to small trees to larger trees to forests. And I do think that it's a challenging thing to wrap your brain around, especially at the 150-year cycle stage, because we as humans barely even live 100.
Right.
So it's like, how can we even imagine that we can interact or like design systems that are going to exist longer than we are?
Like, we don't even have context ourselves.
Exactly.
Like, we could think about it, like,
we can
based
imagine
on
it.
a few seasons or whatever.
And then you add to that our Western mindset of like immediate gratification and things, and it just makes it so much more complicated. Yeah.
But it really does take zooming out on that whole thing.
Yep.
Totally. So JR, so that's so beautiful. The succession of the forest you're explaining, and like the open wound and then the weeds coming in. That's so beautiful to think about.
Accurate.
The earth, man.
It's natural processes. And when we understand how those natural processes work, just like in medicine, we can make interventions to speed up that process. So, for example, let's take it to the other end of the spectrum. When a forest is an old growth forest, it's huge, the trees are large. What happens next? Well, vining plants start to climb the trees. Maybe some trees start to get old. There's a hurricane or a flood or something. A disturbance enters that space and then knocks those trees over. And that point, we can say, oh, it's close to desertification. Nature's doing it anyways. But what happens in that point? The wood breaks down. Fungi come in, they turn that into more accessible nutrients for the microbiology, for the plants in the surrounding area, and it creates a hyper-fertile space, an island of abundance, if you will, in the middle of a forest. And then the new growth comes in. That's right. Rather than when we take part in this action, we cut down the trees and then we take them all away. Right. And like none of that life that existed there for like millions of years is ever fed back to the soil.
I laugh because it's so insane, you know, but it's true. Like, that's what we do. Like, but natural processes.
Exactly.
Goes against that. Dude, so tell people about that. Yeah, like energy accumulation, you know?
Absolutely.
What is that all about? You talk about that. What?
Yeah, so Thiago likes to put it in this way I think is extremely clever. When we think of it as a money bank. So it's like if you start with a depleted piece of land with no fertility, microbiology, like a desert, you just have sand, dirt with not much life to it. As you accumulate organic matter in the sense of plants living and dying, trees falling down, branches accumulating, mulch, anything like this.
Organic matter.
Exactly. As that breaks down into the soil, those resources, those minerals, those key ingredients for life start to build up over time. And when you think about when you walk through an older forest, it's completely covered in leaf litter, and that's been breaking down over time. All of this is accumulating in the soil. So you have almost a reserve, if you would, of energy for the next stage that comes next. And so in that way, we're accumulating much like oil in the ground. And ever since we've stepped foot on the planet as humans, we've been taking from this reserve. It's like having trust left to you by your billionaire
It's
uncle.
interesting.
And you
you
just
could
start
deplete that quickly, or you could compound
figure-
it with more organic matter.
Exactly.
Amazing, man.
And I think that's our key here. It's like learning how to deal with that in a functional manner. It's like, it's not saying that we can never use the resources left behind, but we have
Right.
to do it in a way that accumulates energy rather than depletes energy, because there's only one way we can go that leads to sustainability or survival. So,
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful. JR, like organic matter and building that up in the ground is so essential. And I think that it really starts with like planting those plants that create the organic matter quickly.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Like, what else should people be looking to plant?
I think that was a brilliant point. I was traveling up here with my brother Jacob, who also works with us in Syntropic Solutions, and we were looking at all the citrus groves on our way up, and then it's just rows and rows of citrus, and the ground is pretty much bare soil. There's some grassy spots, and there's tons of space underneath the trees. There's no real canopy layer or anything like that. And it just seems to us at this point a waste, where before it seemed very clean, precise, like calculated, and like now knowing about regenerative agriculture and how nature works, how a system needs to be set up in order to create that accumulation of energy rather than depletion, it seems like there's a huge opportunity missed that is not only environmentally challenging, but also financially limiting as well. It's like you're not taking advantage of all that you can produce in this space.
That's right.
And not only would it benefit you as the farmer, but it would benefit the environment as well. So
Centropy is optimizing your farm better for
Exactly.
financial and all of it.
absolutely. And I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that it's what every farmer needs to do. It does take a certain amount of expertise. It takes a certain amount of knowledge, and it's not the isolated knowledge that's required for monoculture. You just need to know one crop. With Syntropy, it's required to have a diverse knowledge of everything you're growing, and it is challenging. And even if you were to go
But
to
we can learn it.
Exactly. It is something that nature will teach you if you pay attention. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this is that
If
as
you pay attention.
it'll teach you 110.
Wow. So cool, man.
But-
you're tuned in, man.
Absolutely. But just to touch on the topic about accumulating matter and planting those plants to accumulate matter, it's not just your food crops you want to include. If you look at a natural forest, you have everything in place. You have the trees, you have the grass, you have the shrubs. Every spot is filled and everything is playing a role. And if you think about where we got the orange from or where we got the apple from, we took it from its native environment, brought it, replanted the seeds, and created an artificial environment for it to grow.
It's meant for the understory too in that, scene in the forest.
Agreed. You have
Wow.
to put the plant where it belongs in its natural habitat with its friends, with its community that was supporting it. And
You can't
so,
take it out of that and put rows of it for
Exactly.
million
You can,
acres.
but then we'll find ourselves exactly where we are now, having to add heavy fertilizers, having to fight pests and disease constantly. It's because there's space, those things fill space that would have been occupied by the plant's native surroundings. So if you leave a space, then the pests will come, then the weeds will come, then disease will come, because now you've left incomplete immune system, a body without all of its organs.
Mother
And
Nature
so-
says, what's going on here? We got to do something about this right now.
Exactly. So yeah.
No matter what we're doing, Mother Nature persists.
Preach. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. So not only can you plant more food, plant more diverse crop species, but also plant some support species, nitrogen fixers, other things that can help support your system by adding biomass, or so you can do a chop and drop, things like a tittonia, things like that, that can support your system that aren't necessarily for consumption, but that add value to the environmental stability of your farm or a piece of land.
Dude, this is high level stuff. Because tithonia, like that stuff is beautiful.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, so people are missing out, first of all, but second of all, like you're talking about how, like most people would say, because here's like something I get from my clients all the time. Well, why would I want that in my garden? I can't eat it. And I'm thinking, well, what you're saying, it's good for the soil. It grows. It's going to release all that every time you chop and drop. It's going to have tons of nitrogen and biomass and organic matter to feed the soil. And they might not understand that. So maybe like, we were just talking about how this is cutting edge stuff, which is so hilarious. Like, you go to an ag school, they're not talking about like planting
Preach.
support plants and Mexican sunflowers, but like, I so see how important it is. Like, why really should we plant support plants for these citrus? Like, what happens if we don't?
Well, exactly as I was saying before. So imagine an agricultural system as a body. Each body has its organs in place. In Syntropy, one of the things that we talk about is stratification. So stratification refers to the light requirement of each plant in a system. So you'll have something, let's say in like a 2 or 3 year old system, you'll have your papaya, that's a canopy species. And then beneath that, you can have a banana that requires a decent amount of light, but can take a little bit of shade from the papaya. Below that, you can have something like a young cacao growing that needs all of the shade provided by both, and maybe even some pineapples who can also exist under the canopy. And that way, by the time the light goes from the canopy of the forest to the bottom of it, species have accumulated all of that light. As much of that photosynthesis has been captured as possible, which is another principle of Syntropy, maximize photosynthesis.
It makes sense, man. All that green space in between those citrus trees.
Accurate.
What's happening with all that sun energy?
And when we talk about why is it important to maximize photosynthesis, why is it important to fill that space, it's because what happens when you don't? Without the grass to keep the ground cool, the soil heats up. It becomes hydrophobic. So when the water rains and lands on the soil, it runs off rather than gets absorbed. That's right. And that's when you get like mudslides and prolonged periods of drought and things like that. So by leaving those things out, you open yourself up to the deteriorating effects of environmental degradation. So by making sure that you have those things in place, that means that every harvest, every pruning, you're increasing the fertility of your space, rather than every harvest, you're pulling the last of the nutrients you put in out of the ground. So it's living in Eden instead of a dystopic. Amen.
Right? Like
it's scarcity. It is scarcity. Wow. And it's scarcity. This idea that I need to plant 1,000,000 of one thing so I can make sure that I have it, rather than saying I'm going to plant in abundance so that I never have to worry about what I have.
Of everything.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And one thing I do think it helps, just a little nugget of wisdom for farmers, is that a lot of people struggle in those early stages of investing in a fruit tree system. Let's say you want to plant, let's just go with an avocado or an orange system. So you invest in all your fruit trees, and in the first 5 years, you haven't gotten any money back on your investment. Well, if you were to open up those rows and, let's say, spend the first 2 years focusing on vegetable production in between your newly planted tree rows, now you can recoup some of your initial investment in the early stages when the trees aren't even large enough to fulfill their spacing anyways. And so in that way, and that's just like a small step. I wouldn't say it's fully regenerative or syntropic, but it's a way for you to start working with nature and maximizing your own profits and environmental benefit, while also taking advantage of the time and space that you have on the farm or in the system.
Totally. And that's a great solution, man, for that like, why isn't the avocados producing for me financially 5 years in?
Accurate.
Problem, bro. Because that is the thing. Like, most people who go and start farms are like multimillionaires. They can go and buy land.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are just looking at dollar signs.
Preach.
Which, yeah, is important to just know, because you understand it too. You're a nonprofit. Like, we're both real conscious of how much this world revolves around profits.
Amen.
And not the earth, right? So if we understand that, we need to show people these options that, hey, you can grow vegetables in these rows for the first couple years and make money before they,
Accurate.
Produce for us.
Who was? I believe it might have been Thiago who told me this. That was kind of an eye-opener. He was saying that if you're dealing with regenerative systems, regenerative means that it's increasing the quantity and quality of a consolidated life in the system. That means life is getting better for the worms, it's getting better for the plants, it's getting better for the environment, for the rain, for the clouds. But if you leave human beings out of that equation, so you can't have a regenerative system that creates debt, because that means it's not truly regenerative for the farmer himself. And he is an organism in that system. So while me being the type of person I am, I do shy away from this money-focused, consumerist mindset. But at the same time, you have to realize that money is required for life, and that's what it's required for human beings to live. So you need to create a system that maximizes that for them as well. So while building a system with purely a money mindset is not something I would, advocate for.
Because that's what we're doing now, and look what's happening.
Exactly. We're all focusing on doing the least to get the most reward. But I think the real benefit comes from doing the right practices, doing the right thing, and then letting the reward come. Because it's inevitable when you do it. When you practice Syntropi or regenerative ag, you realize that when you do the right thing, the rewards are almost inevitable. You just got to join nature for the ride.
Join nature for the ride, baby. And it's beautiful.
Amen.
We're going to wake up in a couple years and wow, I'm glad we planted all these cacao trees and mangoes. And
agreed. And
all of it.
That's something you said with some of your clients. They asked, well, I'm not going to be eating this. Why should I plant it? One of my mindsets is that it can be very beautiful. I think your support species could be just as beautiful as your fruit trees. And if you use it properly, we don't always need to plant in straight lines and rows. That's for like food production and like maximizing food production things. But for a home setting, for a home garden setting, or for a private consumer, you can make it really beautiful. You can take these principles and make it gorgeous. I heard about a woman the other day who was taking regenerative ag principles, especially using flowers and things to support species. And she's an artist, so she would design with a color palette in mind, so that when everything bloomed, it would be a color palette blooming across her yard. And like, still regenerative, still functional, still absolutely helping the environment. And it's like, it doesn't need to be this mass production mindset. It can be beauty.
That's right. It all could be integrated. Beauty, production.
Agreed.
Right. Joy, the feeling of just enjoying it.
And I can tell you from someone who's been practicing, and it's the same thing with a lot of the higher ups in Syntropi. Once you get involved with a system in that way, get connected and understand the seasons of your land, of your system, you almost don't want to leave it. It's like a baby. Like, you really just want to be there and to caretake for it and watch it grow, because you're connected to it at that point. And so even on a small scale, like, think about the kings of old in England who had their flower gardens and labyrinths. It's like that was their their pride and joy, given they weren't taking care of it. But for us, it can be ours too.
That's right, man.
Truth.
Heck yeah. So, dude, I want to talk, because I love all this stuff. And by the way, guys, look up all that stuff that he's talking about, stratification.
Absolutely.
Like, you could go deep on your own. We only have so much time here. But JR, tell people about you told people about your nonprofit. Also,
Absolutely.
And your projects you got going.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a jack of all trades, juggling a bit. So I have a nonprofit. It's called Quisqueya International, Kiskeya International. Quisqueya is the native Taino word for the island of Hispaniola, pre-colonization.
Interesting.
It roughly translates...
The natives, Taino.
Absolutely.
Cool.
It roughly translates to mother of all lands. And so the idea behind giving my nonprofit that name is because at that time period, the island was abundant. It was lush. The people lived fairly easy lifestyles that was absolutely outside of this scarcity mindset. And I believe the island can have that again. And so in honoring the Tainos and honoring the island itself and where it once was, I named it Quisqueya International to say that that's our goal, to push us back into that abundance, into that ease of living, and into a beautiful, peaceful island that can be shared.
Cool, man. On Hispaniola, so Haiti
and the Dominican Republic. Yeah.
Very cool.
So we had this really cool project. I spoke on it a little bit briefly in the Dominican Republic, partnered with Altair Rodriguez. She is a brilliant agroforester and human rights activist out of the DR. On her farm, Finca Tierra Negra, we have this project called the Regenerative Cacao Blueprint.
Oh, dude, I think I met her at Matt's.
Oh, you definitely could have. Yes, she was in town for a bit.
Finca Tierra Negra.
Yeah.
Very cool, bro.
She is brilliant. If you guys haven't heard of her, definitely look her up.
Shout out. Yeah, go check that out. She's in the DR.
Yep.
Okay.
She has a huge historical context on the land. I can't go into all of it right now, but her grandfather was one of the ones who really brought cacao growing to that region, the Dominican Republic, and has some deep history with like the Trujillo regime, and like he was a revolutionary in the times.
Wow.
So the land itself definitely has historical context. But our goal with this project is to really prove because as you know, we've gone to workshops, we've met people. Regenerative agriculture is a buzzword right now. Everyone is saying it works. This is what we need to do. It's worked here. It's worked here. These are the pictures. But what we're lacking is true scientific data and economic data. Because like you said, the people who are buying farms, who are investing in this large-scale agriculture, are the people looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
And we don't
Where's
have
the charts?
Exactly. We don't have charts. We don't have hard numbers yet.
So what do we do about that?
Well, that's exactly what the RCB is. Our goal is to test regenerative agriculture in a cacao setting so that we can prove the economic and environmental benefits of regenerative ag.
Amazing.
So by the end of this, it's a 10-year research project. We hope to have the full economic analysis, so how much it costs, how much the initial investment would be.
The whole thing.
Exactly, as well as our steps in implementing, as well as all of our ideas on how to change and benefit, and create a document pretty much that can be shared with local farmers in the Dominican Republic, but also, and mainly, used to advocate for regenerative agriculture on a large scale, pretty much in any context.
Like, hey, here's a no-brainer. Here's the playbook.
Yep,
it's
exactly.
gonna work. We sell the cacao.
Agreed.
People love the chocolate.
Absolutely.
And it's good for the planet.
Yep. That's the goal. But we're still in year
Amazing,
one,
man.
so I can't say anything, make any assumptions just yet. But it's looking good.
Cool, I got you. It's a research thing.
Absolutely.
Right on. Dude, but that's amazing. It takes thinking like that, 10, 20 years out for this stuff, you know?
Agreed. And especially when you're working with fruit tree systems, you're not going to really know until 5 years in.
Yeah.
So you got to buckle down and do the hard work. But then once you get the numbers and once you get it right, and it's looking pretty positive, I'll say that. I won't say too much.
Let's
but
go.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great thing especially for the farmers. We want them to be able to have a livable wage. We want the people who grow the things that we enjoy and love and eat to be able to enjoy life and eat themselves, and like to create futures for themselves and their families. And that's really the focus of what this is about.
Dude,
Yeah.
I love it, man. Dude, you're doing great work. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the
that's
mother of all lands, baby.
Yeah.
Right on.
So yeah, that's the nonprofit. And then through this journey of learning about regenerative ag, learning these solutions, I encountered Thiago in Costa Rica. Thiago is the founder of Syntropic Solutions. They're an Australia-based company that is pushing regenerative agriculture through education, workshops, implementations, and different projects around the world, really. They've worked with the government of Curacao. They've had projects all across Australia as well as in the Caribbean as well.
His stuff's beautiful, man.
Absolutely.
He's done it.
He's actually with us on the RCB. We're testing one of the plots. We're testing 3 different plots for the project. His is Syntropic Solution designed one of the plots that we're testing.
Nice.
And it is gorgeous, man. The drone shots are impeccable.
Yeah, I had so much fun planting with him. He's like, more. People were like, should I plant like these many plants next to each other? He's like, yes. They're like, wait, should we do more? He was like, yeah, more. Like,
I love him as a teacher, man. His comedic presence and
Yes.
also his just playful nature with, we take it so seriously about like, oh, we need to, okay, this seed needs to be 30 centimeters from this seed. And it's just like, how does nature do it? Nature drops a whole apple with like 20 seeds in it and just
exactly.
hopes one grows.
and they all come up right there.
Exactly.
And one of them makes it.
Exactly. The best one makes it. The healthiest one makes it. And
So who cares? So throw it on the ground, right?
Exactly.
We get dude, that's an amazing point, guys. Because by the way, we're talking about all this science, like stratification and have it perfect in design. But the truth is, like, don't take it so seriously, man.
Nature is playful. Nature is almost foolproof if you just follow the laws.
Man, and we stress ourselves about it. Like, oh my God, I gotta know all this stuff before I go plant. Like, this guy's world renowned at what he does, the tip of the spear, and he's like, dude, just throw it in the ground. You know? Like, that's what.
And like at the same point, exactly that. We're at the tip of the spear. We're the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the surfacing of regenerative agriculture. And so there's still lots to discover. It's like the age of discovery right now with how we actually can incorporate ourselves with natural systems and be a beneficial part rather than a detrimental part. And so in that way, that playfulness is necessary. We need that curiosity. We need that joy and creativity to just jump in and like test something out, figure out how it actually works. Yeah. Plant it in 6 locations and see which one does better. It's like that's exactly what we need here, and it can't come from a structured, rigid place. It has to come from a free and like excited and just curious place. Yeah, so makes him a great teacher.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I'm working with Thiago now. He kind of pulled me on. I went with him to Australia. We took another workshop out there at Krishna Village over there. Beautiful place. If you're traveling to Australia, check it out.
Cool.
And yeah, just been like working alongside him ever since. He's my mentor. And so now we're at a point where we're trying to expand Syntropic solutions to the United States because there's a need, especially people like me and you traveling all across the world to find these workshops. And now we just need to bring it to them now. So we know the citrus community is struggling in Florida. There's tons of people with interest towards regenerative agriculture.
Yeah, man.
Everybody's talking about it. So we just really want to give people the tools that they need to grow for themselves.
Yeah, man.
Like Thiago always says, grow gardeners, not gardens.
Grow gardeners, that's right.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, so dude, how can people find out about it? Are you going to be doing workshops here?
Oh,
soon?
yeah, absolutely. This
Let's
is just the
go.
start. So
Let's go.
we're definitely planning another workshop out at Peace River Organic, Matt Reese's place. That's going to be, I believe, towards August. Don't quote me on that. We're still working on the dates, but we
Cool.
definitely
Hit 'em
plan.
up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can see all of our workshops online at centropicsolutions.com. But yeah, we're excited. This is just the start. We're making a lot of great partnerships around the area. We got some really exciting things in the works that I can't mention, but
Okay.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, plenty of opportunity for growth.
Yeah, I feel the same, bro. I love that. When we were talking earlier, it's like you're like, I'm excited for what's to come.
Amen. Yeah.
Me too, man.
Preach. And
What's
yeah,
next?
so check us out. Check us out at centropicsolutions.com. Check us out at cascadeinternational.com.
Yes.
Actually, I think that's cascadeinternational.org. My apologies.
Okay.
But yeah,
We'll find it.
if you have any questions, find us on social media. We're always happy to engage, answer questions, things like that. If you have a project that you're interested in, contact us. We're very friendly. Trust me, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right on, dude. Yeah, bro. I appreciate you again for coming.
Hey, thank you.
Is there anything else you want to share with the world? Anything at all?
Yeah, I think this is something that I really wanted to say is that when I started this, I started with no knowledge, zero. I was a massage therapist. I had a huge passion for doing something that mattered and no clue what that was. And so
Yeah.
I just want to say that we all have a purpose. We have something that we're here to do, and it's integrally you. It's not something that's so far out of your wheelhouse. It's something that you have a passion for. And so do that thing. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but I tell you it's going to be worth it. And it's going to be something that only you can do. So yeah, the best thing in life to do is chase that as far as it goes.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Even if you feel like you don't know anything about
Absolutely. You'll figure it out.
That's it, man.
Hey, just like Centropy, life will teach you.
Life will teach you, man, if you pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
JR, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. This has been chill.
Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. Peace,
Cool.
brother.
Peace.